This is Radio Caravan, the world news read by Shabnam Modgil. Exactly 100 years ago today, on the 18th of August in 1920, a timeline for the fight for all women's right to vote ended, and how the suffragists raced to secure women's rights to vote ahead of the 1920 election. That day today, ladies and gentlemen, being commemorated when women in the United States of America achieved their right to vote. In another profound way that the coronavirus pandemic has upended American life, the Democratic National Convention started last night with no convening. Instead, Democrats opted for the first virtual convention as the party begins the formal process of nominating Joe Biden as its candidate for president. The Democrats are using the first day of their convention to showcase the breadth of support they believe Joe Biden can win at the U.S. election by giving both Republicans and left-wingers speaking slots. Former First Lady Michelle Obama launched a scathing attack on President Trump on that first night of the Democratic National Convention yesterday, calling him the wrong president for the country and urging Americans to elect Joe Biden in November to end the chaos created by Trump's presidency. It is up to us to add our voices and our votes to the course of history, she said, and delivered a passionate condemnation of President Trump during last night's opening night of the Democratic National Convention, declaring him in over his head and warning that the nation's mounting crises would only get worse if he's re-elected over Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders accused President Trump of leading us down the path of authoritarianism and having a negligent response to the coronavirus pandemic in his speech at the first night of the virtual Democratic National Convention. And former Ohio Republican Governor John Kasich delivered a forceful endorsement of Democrat Joe Biden for president during that first night yesterday, lambasting President Trump's time in office without mentioning him by name. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo spoke during the first night of the 2020 Democratic National Convention, as was expected, attacking President Trump's abysmal performance on containing the coronavirus pandemic. Actress Eva Longoria, best known for her TV roles in Young and Restless and Desperate Housewives, played a prominent role on the first night of the Democratic National Convention. And it is Senator Kamala Harris, well aware of her groundbreaking status there. The new Democratic vice presidential pick has selected Pioneer as a Secret Service code name and has already started fulfilling that. She's the first black woman nominated to be the vice president, and if elected, she'll be the first woman, Indian American, and black vice president in U.S. history. The U.S. Postal Service is warning states it cannot guarantee that all ballots cast by mail for the November 3rd election will arrive in time to be counted, even if ballots are mailed by state deadlines. Several individuals, including candidates for public office, have sued President Trump and the U.S. Postal Service and its new Postmaster General in New York yesterday to ensure adequate funding for postal operations. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling on the House to return to session later this week to vote and act on blocking USPS organization changes that critics believe could inhibit mail-in voting. President Trump has said he would pardon a very important person today, but added it would not be leaker Edward Snowden or former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Capital murder, kidnapping and burglary charges have been filed against a previously jailed man for the killing of a jogger in the city of Plano in Texas. The 29-year-old was previously a person of interest in the charges for the death of cancer researcher Sharmista Sen, who was found dead near the Chisholm Trail Park in Plano. And federal prosecutors argued that Lori Loughlin and her husband, who is a fashion designer, deserve prison time for cheating to get their daughters into the University of Southern California. A pandemic of the coronavirus has now killed more than 774,000 people worldwide. Over 21.8 million people across the globe have been diagnosed with COVID-19, and the United States, the worst affected country with more than 5.4 million diagnosed cases and at least 170,548 deaths. The World Health Organization said today it was concerned that the coronavirus spread was being driven by people in their 20s, 30s and 40s. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand slapped down President Trump's talk of an out-of-control coronavirus surge in New Zealand as patently wrong. FBI agents have arrested a Puerto Rico representative over her alleged connection with a long-term conspiracy theory to defraud the government through means of bribery, theft, kickbacks and money laundering. The cataclysmic explosion that rocked Lebanon to its core has compelled United States officials to focus on what matters the most, the prevention of another failed state in the Middle East from which only America's regional foes can benefit. Lebanese president dismissed as impossible the chance that a vast explosion in Beirut's port this month was caused by a blast from a deposit of Hezbollah arms, but said that all possibilities would be investigated. The son of Lebanon's murdered Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri has called for the Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah to end its involvement in Lebanese politics and allow the country to rebuild following this month's devastating blast at Beirut, a port which killed more than 200 people. And the Special Tribunal for Lebanon found no evidence that the leadership of Hezbollah or the Syrian government were involved in the 2005 bombing that killed the former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. 6 members of Afghan President Ashraf Ghani's honor guard were wounded today when a rocket struck his palace compound. And Iran is reported to have paid bounties to a Taliban faction for killing U.S. and coalition troops in Afghanistan, leading to 6 attacks last year, including a suicide bombing at the U.S. airbase in Bagram. Israel has not softened its opposition to any United States arms sales to the United Arab Emirates that could diminish its military superiority as part of the U.S.-brokered normalization of their ties. Oman's foreign minister spoke to his Israeli counterpart, the first contact since Israel has normalized ties with the UAE last week. Israeli warplanes pounded Hamas-ruled Gaza early this morning in response to Palestinian fire balloon attacks across the border. And German and Israeli Air Force jets flew over the former Nazi concentration camp of Dachau today in tribute to the Jews and others killed there in the Holocaust. Libya faces a deceptive calm since fighting stalled around Sirte, the central hometown of fallen dictator Muammar Gaddafi. And factory workers in Belarus continue to strike, turning up pressure on the country's authoritarian leader to step down after winning an election they say was rigged. Italy has no more room for illegal migrants, according to its foreign minister, on a visit to Tunisia, from where many of them cross the Mediterranean Sea. England will scrap the government agency responsible for responding to public health emergencies after the country has suffered the highest death rate in Europe from the coronavirus pandemic. And Swedish staff have left the country's embassy in North Korea, but the diplomatic mission in Pyongyang remains open and is being staffed by local employees in this news out of Stockholm. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is convening a key ruling party body tomorrow for the first time in 8 months to address a crucial mystery issue. He's got plenty of tricky situations to choose from. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan, and pro-democracy protests have rumbled on for a month in Thailand with calls for free elections and a new constitution. As Hong Kong pro-democracy advocates voice support for the Thai anti-government protests at the weekend, they use the hashtag #MilkTeaAlliance. A former CIA officer has been charged with providing secrets to China over the course of a decade in a case that a top Justice Department official describes as coming straight from a spy novel. In a significant achievement for the indigenous fighter aircraft program, the Indian Air Force has deployed the homegrown light combat aircraft Tejas on the western front along the Pakistan border in view of the tensions with China on the Ladakh front. India is negotiating with 13 countries, including Australia, Japan and Singapore, to establish separate bilateral air bubble arrangements for international flight operations. And the UK government issued an appeal for more people from an ethnic minority background, including those of Indian origin, to sign up for the ongoing clinical trials for a potential vaccine to combat COVID-19. An early discovery of COVID-19 vaccines will be a source of confidence, but its delivery to over 1 billion people might take time, according to a report by an accountancy firm on the revival of economic growth. The Union Health Ministry issued a report stating that 2 people died of coronavirus every 3 minutes in the country in a span of 24 hours between the 16th and 17th of this month. India has set another record of conducting nearly 9 lakh COVID-19 tests in a single day, which is the highest so far. Union Home Minister Amit Shah was admitted to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences early this morning, days after he was discharged from the Medanta Hospital in Gurugram following his recovery from COVID-19. And Executive Chairperson of Bengaluru headquartered Biocon Limited, Kiran Mazumdar Shah, said she has tested positive for COVID-19. The BMC has created 167 artificial ponds across the city of Mumbai for Ganesha Utsav, encouraging people to immerse idols at these facilities and adopting other measures to avoid overcrowding amid pandemic seasons. Maharashtra has so far received about 16% more rainfall than the normal average in this monsoon season, and Prime Minister Modi urging citizens today to take precautions during the ongoing monsoon season, noting that this is the time when tropical and vector-borne diseases spread. India's limited overs vice-captain Rohit Sharma, star wrestler Vinesh Phogat, TTT player Manika Batra and Paralympic gold-winning high jumper Mariyappan Thangavelu were today picked for this year's Rajiv Gandhi Khel Ratna Award by the Sports Ministry Selection Committee in New Delhi. And skipper Virat Kohli remained at the second position in the batting chart, which has two more Indians in the top 10. But pacer Jasprit Bumrah slipped to the 9th spot among bowlers in the latest ICC Test player rankings issued today. Pakistan seamer Mohammad Abbas took 2 wickets yesterday as a weather-interrupted second test against England at Southampton ended in a predictable draw. And England captain Joe Root has said he would love to play in Pakistan, but is unsure when the space would be found in a crowded schedule ahead of a planned tour in 2022. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi explained the government's 4-point strategy over dealing with India and emphasized that in a changing world there would have to be a greater reliance on national strength rather than looking towards international structures. And Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa reached Saudi Arabia and held meetings with the kingdom's top military leadership today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all that I have in the news for you on this 18th day of August.